Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is 2:05. We are going to get started just to make sure that we have plenty of time to cover everything that we need to. So this is our equity work group review session number 1. We did have our introductory meeting quite some time ago, and we now have information that is going to be reviewed for the new IWDS 2.0 system. The goal of this new system is to develop a platform that's going to reduce any inequities for the populations that the workforce system serves. This work group is going to assist DCEO and the Illinois WorkNet team, ensuring the language used in IWDS 2.0 meets the visioning and equity standards of a customer-centered system. The new system needs to be inclusive, equitable, and have a human-centered approach to intake and all the services that are offered while we are collecting required data for Pearl reporting. So the purpose of the work group is going to be to use questions set up in our guardrail tool to ensure that the questions being asked in IWDS 2.0 meet the visioning and equity standards. As a reminder, the equitable language needs to be plain, which ensures that our audience understands our writing. It needs to be asset-based, which prioritizes the individual's strengths and potential in our language, always using people-first language and putting a person ahead of their characteristics. Inclusive language aims to use language that respects diversity and avoids marginalizing anyone. Does anybody have any questions with regards to what the objective is of the group? Great. I am going to turn it over to Lynette and Taylor, and they will take on the next steps.
Thank you, Sarah. Sorry, I could not find my mute button. So as Sarah mentioned, just a reminder, this is going to assist us with creating a workforce system that uses an inclusive, human-centered approach to intake and service. So the bigger picture here would be to ensure that we're meeting the needs that the governor has set. We're also meeting WIOA legislation, and we are working to improve the customer experience within the new system. So today we're going to be going over the first assignment, which will be going over the customer and application lists, as well as the create customer record. Some of you may have already gotten into that document and looked around, but Olivia will be spearheading that here shortly. We do have 2 more assignments that will be coming up pretty quickly. One of them will be the application. I believe Lynette will be doing that in smaller chunks because this is such a large piece of the puzzle. And that first piece that you'll be reviewing for the application will be the contact information. In addition to the application, we will also be doing another assignment on the customer profile. So this is what's going to be created after you create a customer record, where all of the individual's information is stored for contact information, private information, things like that. So both of those assignments will be coming up in the next few weeks. And then as we develop the application, you'll get additional assignments from the application and then additional assignments through like the career plan and things like that as we start our discovery and development on those items as well. So with that, I will pass it over to Olivia and we'll get started on your first assignment for today.
Thank you very much, Taylor. I did have my chat open, but when I shared my screen, I lost it. So if any questions come in the chat, Taylor, if you wouldn't mind, Taylor, Sarah, Lynette, just kind of flagging them for me so I can make sure to answer those. So thank you all so much for your time and effort on all of the work that we're going to be doing. We really greatly appreciate you guys diving into this work and ensure that we're creating a system that is going to help our customers and our career planners and be written in a way that is equitable and easy for our users to understand. So this first document that I'm going to be taking you guys through is really looking at the customer and application listing and the creating the customer record pages. just a little background on the format of this. We created a template document that as we get these different screens developed and the different tools defined, we're going to be putting everything in a similar format in this kind of flow. So as you guys are reviewing this, the purpose today is to just kind of walk through and talk through this with you guys, and then give you guys the week to kind of really dive in, add your comments, and really dig into the content so that we can make any changes to the language that are necessary. But also, as we initially get this going, if there is a better flow or something that seems confusing to you guys too, just in the general layout of how we're presenting this information to you, we definitely want to know that as well, because we're going to continue to reuse this template. So we want to make sure that it is a good workflow for you all as well as you're reviewing this information. So with that, we'll jump right into it. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time just talking about some of the basics on here so you understand the flow. So we start out with just our general title. We have today's date that we're getting this sent out for review. And then as we had previously discussed, for these different documents, we're asking for about a week turnaround time so that we can keep this moving in the development cycle of the project. And then we just have a list of the different reviewers that are going to be reviewing this document. So we ask that after you have completed your entire review of the document, you come and find your name and you just click the box to check it off so that we have an easy way to know that everybody has reviewed it. And if we're missing some folks, we can reach out to them directly just to make sure that they had a chance to get their review in before we move forward with any of the language changes. Under that, we have our table of contents. So I'm going to walk through each of these sections. So we start out, the first chunk of this document is just trying to give you guys context about what these various pages or tools that you're going to be looking at and reviewing the language for are doing, where they fit in the system, and what kind of users are going to be engaging with these tool sets. So for this one, where it fits in the workflow of the system, we're going to be looking at two different pieces, the customer and application search, and then to create the customer record. So in the flow of the entire system, we're really at this first step right here where you can look for customers and add customers to the system. This is a very high level flow of the system where customers can come in and get services, complete applications, move through eligibility. Again, this is very high level. We didn't want to give you the mile-long flow of how the system would work. This is really putting it into big boxes. So this is just kind of an idea for you guys. Like, we're really starting at the beginning. This is where we're at in the system as we look through these pages. The purpose of these two tools is defined here so you understand what we're trying to do, just to help give you guys a little context when you go in and look at this language. So system users such as career planners and state staff will have access to a listing of customers and application they've been granted access to in the system. So this is where they can come in and search those customers and applications they have access to. They create the customer record. System users can complete a search to ensure the customer does not already exist in the system. Once they verified that they're adding a new customer, they're directed to the create customer record screen. This is where they'll complete all the fields to get the customer record created in the system. Creating a customer record is required at this stage so that we can capture the necessary data needed to report data on a reportable individual required by the Department of Labor. So that's kind of why they have to, the why behind why are we creating a customer record. And then after that record's been created, the system users can document universal services, information-only services, add case notes, complete the application. Really, once they've created this customer record, this is how they can then move further into the system to do other actions and activities. But we first need that record before we can document everything. And then who touches this area of the system? So the customer and application search, this is where we're seeing our LWIA career planners, our state staff, our intake staff, resource room specialists. Folks like that are coming in and able to search these. To create the customer record, this is our very similar staff, our LWIA career planners, intake staff, resource room specialists. But we also want to keep in mind, and I'll go back and put this in there, that they're completing these records with the customer. So earlier on in this document, Lisa had added a really great comment that I wanted to point out. I left it open here. Lisa came in and had added some comments on some things to keep in mind and some potential language that could be used in place of other language that has been identified. But one of the things she pointed out is that this is going to be about the customer and the career planner. Some of the content in this document will be used for instructional purposes. So we want to make sure we're looking at it through the same lens to ensure the language for the career planners and also the individual is easy to understand and inclusive. So as we come back down here, that is really this top section is just giving you guys context about what we're asking you to review, because we don't want to just give you things and say, hey, review this, and you guys not understand at all how it fits in the larger process of what we're trying to do here. The next section gets into the language to review. So these are set up very similarly where we're going to give you just the tool you're going to be reviewing. So this is the customer and application search. And then this is kind of a standard paragraph that we have before each of the tools. It just tells you that this includes mockups that were approved by the IWDS state transition team. And while they did approve the examples, if there are changes to improve the flow from an equity perspective, we do ask that you please suggest those. And then you're going to find the text that we're asking you to review. And that if you could track your changes, that would be very helpful so we know where we need to go back and make changes to language and it stands out. And so this top section here, this paragraph isn't all of them. And then we get into, for each section, we're going to give you some mock-ups. So this is an example of what the page looks like that we're going to ask you to review the language for. So you can see this is our customer listing page. And we have down here a little description of the screenshot that you're seeing. We also have one for our application listing. And then we have a little description here for what you're seeing. And then we get into the text for you to review. So what we've done is we've taken all the text out of this page or out of these screenshots in the pages, and we've put them right here for you to review. So view customer, view application is the header. So right here, view customer, view application. So we're not asking you to look at these screenshots and figure it out. We actually have all the text we want you to review in this section right here. So here's the page header to review. Here's the informational text. So you'll see there's little info bubbles right here. We have spelled out exactly what text is in each of those info bubbles and would like you guys to look at that kind of text to make sure it is equitable and inclusive and written so individuals can easily understand it. And then it goes through the filters. So in some areas, it wasn't just as straightforward as just a paragraph of text. So we identified the filters that are used here. We put those in a table for you guys to review. So you can see the name used, the type of field it uses, and how this search functionality works, and then where applicable, field options. So obviously name is just a text field. There's no options there, but sometimes there is specific options or validation around these fields. So we spelled that out here to give you guys an understanding of how this works. We also identified the order because you guys might find that to make this more inclusive or easier to understand, this order of these items in different areas might need to be reordered for a better flow. So you can also come in and change the ordering of how you see things laid out. We left you a little comment right here for you guys to add any comments to any of these necessary. If you want to provide more context or anything like that, you can do so in these columns. So it goes through and it provides all the filters and the different filter options that are presented when the user interacts with that part of the system. And then we also have advanced filters. So you don't see these in the mockup, but we have this button right here that says advanced filter. So when you open that up, more filter options pop up. We just didn't want to overwhelm the user with 100 filters. So then that table just gets into what are these other filter options that show up there. And then we get into the customer table and the application table. So let me scroll back up to that mockup. So the filters across the board are the same regardless of if you're on the customer listing or the application listing view. These filters don't change. But what does change is the data table. So when you're looking at applications, you're going to see some different data than when you're looking at a customer. So what we did down in these tables was we broke out what you see in those data tables, and again, the order that they're in. So you can come in and do the exact same thing as the previous tables. Any text needs changed, any order that needs changed, you can do so here. And then we also try to provide like some of the format used in some of these areas where it made sense. And then you'll see we get to another tool. So then we move on. That is all of the application and customer listing stuff that we'd like you to review. And then we move on to the create customer record. So we have the search. You can search all the customers, but you have a new customer and you need to add them to the system. One of the things that is not here because it's reusing tools is it's going to force you to do a search before you add a customer. Because we're not going to just guarantee that they came in and searched on their own first. We're going to force the searches done to make sure there is no customer in the system that matches that. It'll be a larger search than their actual listing in case the customer is from another LWIA, duplicate names, married individuals, name changes, stuff like that. The system's doing that dedupe. That's all going to use the same language that you're reviewing in other areas. So we didn't include that in here for you guys to use or to review because it would be duplicative work. But once they have verified it is an actual new customer, they will move forward to create a new customer record. This was reviewed and will look different than what's done in IWDS for anybody who is familiar with IWDS because we put this through our visioning process so far. There's several different steps that I know was talked about during the kickoff. And so we really looked at the why are we asking these questions? And if there's not a great why, let's not ask them. So some questions were taken out to make sure that we're not asking unnecessary questions just because we've always asked them, so why not? So again, we have that standard paragraph that just talks about tracking changes and that if there's any suggestions, please provide them. And then we get into the mock-up. So you can see here, this is a mock-up of the create customer record. This first mock-up is a mock-up of the default data input fields that are on when you load this page. However, some of these questions have additional logic behind them. So when you say yes to something like, do you need an accommodation? Another field will pop up and give you, say, okay, what kind of accommodation do you need? Let's figure that out. Or if you say yes to the veteran status question, there's some additional vet question that might be asked. We're not just going to assume everybody needs those. So there's some logic behind the scenes that when you answer yes to a specific question, it will show you more questions. And that's all defined further down when we get into the table to review that. But we did in the mockups kind of show you how other questions could be added or triggered based on answers provided. So after the mockups, we get into the section that is text to review for equitable language. Very similar. Here's our header text. Here's the info bubble text we want you to look at. And then the data field. So this is a bigger table because they're really all we're doing is collecting data on this field on this page. And Lisa put some great comments here that when you guys are going through, you can take a look at. So our question is, do you need accommodations? That's what we came up with. But there are, she had included some additional language here and some side notes on better ways that we could ask this. And we know as you guys all look through this, we're going to have better ways that we can ask a lot of these questions to be more inclusive and also more plain language. And then you'll see here, so this is where we really get into the type of questions, a lot of answer options. Some of these, when you're looking at the table, you might think, okay, well, accessible information, all this stuff, great, but how is the end user going to know that? So we put, if there's an info bubble included, we put a yes there. So you guys know that later down, we're going to have more text that will help define that because we know the end user might not know some of these things off the top of their head, but we don't want to have a drop down that is a mile long because we try to define everything in the drop down. So we've input info bubbles where necessary to give that context. So that's what this is trying to identify right here. And then again, another field that we have is required. So some of these are not required fields. They are optional. We're looking to try to collect this information, but not going to force the user to do this. Usually if it is not required because of the Perl, we are not making it a required field. It becomes an optional field. But we did identify some questions that even though they're not required by the Perl, we do think they would be really beneficial questions to ask to better serve the customer and help identify the best next steps. So again, we have some comments here from Lisa that I left open. If Lisa put a lot of great information in here, and if Lisa and I were able to resolve them, or if it was more on the technical side, I addressed them and resolved them. But if they were more around the language or things to keep in mind that felt like they would be beneficial for you all to see, I did leave those comments open. So we have the table for all of the data input fields here. And then so when we get down to our vet question, so the veteran status, and this is the one where if they say yes or qualified spouse or transitioning service member, it may pop open more questions. So when you see things like this, if then, this is really trying to show you guys if they answer this, then they're going to get this question, or then they're not going to get this question. So this is that logic behind the scenes that's running just to kind of give you guys an idea of who's going to see that. And then this last little bit is just all the info bubbles. We have them for accommodations. We have them for the vet status, eligible veteran status, and covered person. Those were things that I didn't even know off the top of my head as somebody who's been doing this for a long time. So we definitely don't expect the end user to know that. A lot of this was taken directly from various policies, whether it be WIOA or vet policy. And so if we need to rewrite this in a way that is easier to understand from the end user, we definitely can. Because you can see here, we have a lot of very technical language in these. So yeah, and then the last little bit, this last page is just review team comments. So if there's any other comments or notes you guys want to identify, this is space for you guys to do that. I also think this would be great, especially in these first few when you're kind of getting used to the format. If you have suggestions to just the flow of how we're providing this information to you, this would be a really great spot to kind of further elaborate. Maybe you've commented up like, this doesn't really fit here. You can kind of further elaborate on how you think the flow might be better. So moving forward, we can try to provide a flow that kind of meets the way you guys are getting and reviewing this information. So I'm going to pause. I know that was a lot to kind of cover in this document, but we really wanted to kind of show you guys how we are presenting this information and really give you guys ample time to ask questions and dig into things before we kind of send you off on your own. I see I have one chat. It's Lisa, yeah.
That's a quiet group.
Well, you spend a lot of time putting something together that makes a lot of sense and is easy to follow. So I don't really have any questions besides where do I access the document? So kudos for setting this up for success. I think it should be relatively simple to just work through the document, track changes, and put some comments in at the end. So thank you, but I don't know where to access the document myself.
Perfect. Yeah, we have it saved in a shared drive, and after this meeting, we will send out an email. It'll come from Sarah with a link to this document, and it's in Teams through SharePoint. If anybody has any issues accessing it, just reply back to the email, and we'll make sure to get you squared away. And then if during your review, if you guys end up getting into something and you have comments or you need more clarification, you can reach out to Sarah, and she will make sure to connect you with whichever BA is in business analyst is responsible for what you're reviewing. And we can hop on a call with you and provide you the information you need ASAP so that you guys can keep moving forward as well. And then one other thing I wanted to add, actually, Valerie, I see you came off mute a couple times, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. So I have to be transparent. I'm a little overwhelmed with all the information because I'm not very I guess familiar with the system, but I guess as I read through, I'll have a better understanding. I don't have access to Microsoft Office. We unfortunately are a Google Google Docs organization. So is it possible that I can receive this? I hate asking this, but is it possible that I can receive this outside of Microsoft Office,
You should be able
outside
to,
of a Word document?
you should be able to open it online in shared drive and it not require any kind of
Okay,
Microsoft access. But
okay,
if you do have issues with it, let us know. And yeah, we can definitely move it into a
Okay.
format that you can read and engage
okay.
with.
All
Yeah.
right there, and you'll be sending that out today?
Yes, right after this meeting, we'll get that sent
All right.
out along with the recording. We'll send it to everybody on the list. I think it looks like everybody's here now, but if you missed the first little bit, you can watch that first little bit of the recording.
Okay, then thank you so much.
Yeah. And I wanted to add, so when we get your feedback, we will go through it. And if there is any discrepancies or any questions we have to make sure that we do move forward in the right direction, we will put together if it's straightforward enough, we'll put together an email asking for clarification and get that squared away. If it seems a little more complex, we'll try to find time for a short 30-minute meeting with the group to just talk through so we can dot our T's and cross our I's before we move it into development. So that's all I have. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right. Like I said at the very beginning, we are very appreciative to have this working group together, have your guys' eyes on this. It's going to make for a much better system, a much more inclusive system. And that's really what we're wanting to do here as we move into IWDS 2.0. And please do not hesitate to reach out to us with any questions you guys have. We want to make sure we're giving you everything you need to get this work done. So thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to continuing to work with you guys.